Welcome to this video, where we will talk about the movie Ghost Rider. We will begin by exploring the movie storyline, summarizing its plot, and discuss the cast and characters. Then we will take a closer look at the film production, details, and box office performance. Finally, we will share review and audience reaction to give you a well-rounded perspective. Let's get started. Ghost Rider 2007 movie box office collection budget and unknown facts. Directed by Mark Stephen Chosen, produced by Avi Hart, Stephen Paul, Michael D. Losa, Carrie Foster. Written by Mark Stephen Chosen, based on Johnny Blaze Pike. Starting Nicolas Cage, Avi Mendes, Wes Bentley, Sam Elliott, Donald Logo, Peter Fonda. Music by Christopher Young, edit by Richard Francis Bruce. Cinematography, Rachel Piot. Production Company, Columbia Pictures, Marvel Entertainment, Crystal Sky Pictures, Relative Media. For the 1982 short film, see Ghost Rider 1982 film. Ghost Rider is a 2007 American superhero film based on the Marvel comic characters of the same name. The film was written and directed by Mark Stephen Chosen and starred Nicolas Cage as Johnny Blaze, Ghost Rider, with the Avi Mendes, Wes Bentley, Sam Elliott, Donald Logo, Matt Long, and Peter Fonda in the supporting roles. Ghost Rider was released on 16 February 2007 in the United States. The film was met with a negative review from the critics but was a box office success, earning $228.7 million worldwide on a $110 million budget. Ghost Rider was released on DVD, Blu-ray, and UMD on 12 June 2007. A sequel titled Ghost Rider: Speech of the Vanities was released on 17 February 2012 with the Cage reprising his role. Ghost Rider set box office applies. New York Sony Marvel comic adaptation Ghost Rider Reborn and the estimated $44.5 million over the first 3 days of the extended President Day frame, easily talking number one at the domestic BO and becoming the biggest opening of the year so far. New York Sony Marvel comic adaptation Ghost Rider reviewed an estimated $44.5 million over the first 3 days of the extended President Day frame, easily talking number one at the domestic BO and becoming the biggest opening of the year so far. Studio was estimating Sunday morning that the peak could roll to $51 million over 4 days, which would make it the biggest President Day opening ever, surprising Adam Sandler comedy 51st Date, which hit $45.1 million over 4 days in 2004. The PG-30 Ghost Riders play 3,690 location as the film video's new release. Peak star Nicolas Cage as the supernatural classic Johnny Blaze, and numbers could conventionally special a new franchise for the studio, though Sony Blaze would not comment on that possibility. Popular on Variety, Ghost led a busy weekend with the five new wide roster entertaining the frame. Destiny Big Screen Kid lead adaptation, meantime, British to the Terry Beth landed in the second place over the 3-day frame, flying to $22 million of 3,390 picks got a plump per engagement average of 7,032 as the film's second biggest new rollout. In other new bros, Warner Bros. Romantic comedy, music and lyrics wrote a $40 million of 2,928 epic open on Valentine's Day to try and the coral the date crowd come stand at the $90.5 million since its V-debut. Long stage power Taylor Pretty Latest Daddy Little Girls to $12.1 million wrote a $40 million of 2,929 peak open on the Valentine Day to try and the corral the date crowd come stand at the $90.5 million since its V-debut. Long stage power trailer pre-latest Daddy Little Girls to $12.1 million of 2111. Peak played over 3 days to 5,732 per location. Peak could advance in the charts depending on its The Monday buys tomorrow. Family comedy also bought on the Valentine Day and how has a come of $70.8 million. Universal Spa Thrill Breach main time skinned into the 6 on the cards, drawing up an estimated $10.4 million over 3 days. Peak bout in 1,489 theaters. Any new release, however, besides Ghost and the Tribute could not catch DreamWorks Eddie Murphy starred Norbert Peak held well. Any new release, however, besides Ghost and the Tribute could not catch DreamWorks Eddie Murphy's Dear Norbit Peak held well, meaning to drop to the number 3 spot in its second outing. Peak took in another $60.8 million over the first 3 days of President Day weekend to raise its comes to $58.8 million. Any new release, however, beside Ghost and Tribute could not catch DreamWorks Eddie Murphy's Dear Norbit Peak held well, meaning to drop the number 3 spot in its second outing. Peak took in another $60.8 million over the first 3 days of President Day weekend to rise its comes to $58.8 million among recent opening in the specially game Sony Classic Scares Counters. The Lives of the Other in its the second frame took in 3,066, 128 of 32 screen for a healthy per screen average of $11,442. After a strong couple of weeks in a handle of the markets, MGM and the Vincent Co. factory grill expanding by 380 but was not able to keep up the Soco per screen average from its the intentional more limited run. Senior Miller's Tear took in the 506,000 for a per locations. Sinina Miller's Tear took in the 50,60,000 for a per location average of 1,508 comes standing at just under 89,09,000 4-day estimated for the President Day frame. Will be released come Monday morning, but Ghost, a sole run as the number 1 for the weekend is not in the debut. Sony Bay said that peak success came because it played well across broad geography demos seeking slightly male. Ghost Rider fans tell me that this film is not the bankers of the franchise. Reinforce the fact that this is a character that deserves a film that does him justice. This is supposed to be a cool character, is not it? Why has it been given such a trouble film? I got a headache after watching Ghost Rider. This is a mess of a movie that tells a story that could be content to a 50-minute Saturday cartoon if it did not have so much pointlessness. We open with such an overlong introductory sequence that I feel bad for even have to describe it. Instantly, a kid named Johnny Blaze. He grew up to be played by Nicolas Cage and his father do stunts on their motorcycle at a kennel. His father has the cancer but the devil, Peter Fonda, show up and tells us that Johnny can sell his soul and have father cancer cured. Johnny does this, but next day his dad dies, not from the cancer but because of an accident. Johnny plays the devil, but the devil says that he cured the. We open with such a overlong introductory sequence that I feel bad for even having to describe. Instantly, a kid named Johnny plays. He grows up to be played by Nicolas Cage and his father do stunts on their motorcycle at a criminals. His father has cancer but the devil Peter Fonda show up and tells us that Johnny can sell his soul and have his father cancer cured. Johnny does this, but the next day his dad dies, not from the cancer but because of an accident. Johnny plays the devil, but the devil says that he cured his cancer, so the deal is still solid. Johnny's soul now belongs to him. Clearly traumatized by events, Johnny rides off, leaving the love of his life, Russian Avi Mendes, at the criminal. He then grew up to be a professional stunt rider. Like I said, his father's accident clearly had an effect on his mental stability. He is the best in the world somehow, and even after he fails at one of his stunts that would likely kill a normal man, he survived. Why? The devil is keeping him alive, that's why. Meanwhile, Rokshan is the news reporter and is in town for the current stunt show. The two, after not having talking in years, make plans for the dinner. Mr. Blaze is not going to make it to dinner. See, the devil kept him alive from one purpose, turning him into the comic book characters. Mr. Blaze is not going to make it to dinner. See, the devil kept him alive for the one purpose, turning him into the comic book characters Ghost Rider in order to track down a contract containing 1,000 souls in order to stop a man named Blackheart was Bentley from getting it first, or something like that. I hope that summarized it well enough. It's ridiculously, but this is a comic book movie involving the devil man and a man who turns into a flaming skilled dude at night. Of course, this is only revealed on the night of his big date, and because he has no control over his body while in this Ghost Rider state, he does not make it. Of course, I would not want to show up to a date with the flaming skill head that Johnny ends up acquiring, not because of the potential fire hazard that comes from such a hitting, not because everyone would be terrified to even come near me. No, I would be ashamed because of the terrible CGI used to give me such a head. To sell this is the rose biggest budget rating of a character in the 21st century might not be excreting its look awful. I have seen better looking computer graphic in the PlayStation 2 games. This is a 2007 film. Look worse than something like Spawn come out a decade earlier. Moving on from the terrible CGI head, the other special effects are not quite as terrible, but they come close. It seems that Ghost Rider can't go 5 minutes without showing CGI in our face. The only thing that looks alright is the fire effect used on Johnny Pike, but conversation how often poor lazy CGI is used in this film, this is hardly a saving grace. The police also get involved at one point, attempting to pin a murder on the Johnny Blaze. We saw his Ghost Rider personal kill the guy. All thought he was a criminal, so it's okay. But Johnny denies it. The copy actually go to Roxanne at one point and try to get information from her. At this point, I said out loud that once Johnny Inventable escaped from the copy, well, never see them again. I was unfortunately right, and it turns out that the subplot was just the was not of our time. So is the Russian there's supposed to be a lot of the tension between the two, especially considering Johnny left her while they were in love and later stood her up after getting his the second chance, but that revolved in a matter of the moments without any prior motivations. It's then when Roxanne become Gansey love instead. So is the Roxanne. There's supposed to be a lot of tension between the two, especially considering that Johnny left her while they were in love and then later stood her up after getting his second chance, but that resolved in a matter of moments without any prior motivations. It's then when Roxanne become generic love instead and we lost any reason to care about what happened to her because she now a stock characters was in fact as he is now personality and is played by Avi Mendes. Oh yes, there also another pointless addition in the form of the characters Sam Elliott, who knows why more about being a ghost rider. They have been more in the past and the December will be more in the future. We learn than Johnny does, so he acts like a mentor except he only appears about 4 times, one of which has him get on a horse, ride with the journey from some of the distance they have to travel, and then stop and say, "Good luck, kid, but I am not giving any further." That's dangerous, or at least that's what it seems like. I am not sure anymore. I am still hoping I dreamed the interior things and that my subconscious is not weak. Good storyteller. Ghost Rider is an absolute mess. It has no currency, little clearly, is without a single point or purpose, and contain trouble special effects that it seems very proud of the deposit being first. Ghost Rider is an absolutely mess. It has no currency, little clearly, is without a single point or purpose, and contains stable special effect that it seems very proud of deposit beings worse than film I decided earlier. You can usually really on the superhero film to add the very latest look good. But Ghost Rider does not even satisfy my desire to see good special effect. This is one of the worst superhero movie I have ever seen, and I can't recommend it to anyone, even if you are a die-hard fan of the character. You will just wind up disappointed and crying, wondering what you and other Ghost Rider fans did to deserve this the authority. Ghost Rider 2007 follows the story of Johnny Blaze, a talented motorcycle stuntman who makes of the functions begin to save his the father from the cancer. In exchange for his father's life, Johnny unwittingly sells his soul to the devil, Master Paul's years. Later, Johnny becomes the Ghost Rider, a supernatural being with a flaming skills and the ability to punish evil. As he grabs with his new identity, he is tasked with the capturing recognized soul that having escaped from hell. The film explores themes of the redemption and the sacrifice as Johnny battles not only the focus of evil, but also his own inner demons, ultimately seeking to reclaim his soul and to protect ones he loves. The film explored themes of the redemption and sacrifice as Johnny battles not only the forces of evil but also his own inner demons, ultimately seeking to reclaim his soul and protect the ones he loves, with thrilling action sequence and a blend of the horror and the fantasy. Ghost Rider Devils a unique take on the superhero genre. What is the budget of Ghost Rider? Ghost Rider 2007 is a captivating film that combines elements of the horror and the fantasy within the superhero genre. Directed by Mark Stephen Johnson, the movie star Nicolas Cage as Johnny Blaze alongside Avi Mendes and Wes Bentley, released on 16 February 2007. This film not only the showcases thrilling action sequence but also delves into the themes of the redemptions and the sacrifice. The budget of the Ghost Riders plays a significant role in the understanding its the production and the final and financial success. What was the production budget? The production budget for Ghost Rider was a the production budget for the Ghost Rider was a substantial $120 billion. This figure places it among other highest budget superhero films of its time, such as Spider-Man 3 and Fantastic Four Rise of the Civil Surfer, which also had budget exceeding $100 million. The Universal in Ghost Rider reflects the ambition to create a visual stunning and action-packed film that would apply to a wide audience. Key budget elections the category. While specific backgrounds of the budget are not publicly available, survival key factors typically contribute to the overall production cost. Special effects give the supernatural elements of the film significant resources well allocated to create the iconic film skulls and the other visual effect talent. The casting of well-known actors like Nicole Cage likely contribute to the budget as top-tier talented often commands high salary. Location. Film is the various location included Los Angeles and the New Mexico added to the long cyclical coast. What were the major cost factors? Survivor elements contributed to the overall production cost of the Ghost Rider. Notable expenses included special effects. The film's supernatural visuals required advanced CGI and the practical effects, which are often among the most expensive aspects of the production. Stunt work. As a motorcycle stuntman, Johnny Blaze characters necessitated extensive stunt work, further increasing costs. Set design. Creating the film's unique environment included Hell's landscape required significant instantment in set design and the conversations. Challenge across during production, particularly with the ambitious special effect, which may have led by budget. Challenges across during production, particularly with the ambitious special effects, which may have led to budget overruns. The intentional budget of the $120 billion was the closely mentioned, but the final cost reflects the complexity of the bring such a visual demanding story to life. How did Ghost Rider perform at the box office? Ghost Rider achieved a worldwide box office earning of the 2029 lakh 5045 $589. The domestic box office total reached 150 lakh 150 billion 8200 150 lakh 8002 $596, while international marks contributed significantly to its overall success. Break-even point analysis. To determine the film's financial success, it's the essential to consider the break-even point. Typically, a film needs to earn approximately double its production budget to cover marketing and distribution costs. In this case, Ghost Rider need to the gross ground $240 million to break even, making its total earning a narrow miss. ROI percentage. The return on investment ROI for the Ghost Rider can be calculated as follows. Total earning. Was Ghost Rider profitable? Deposit not reaching the break-even point. Ghost Rider can be considered moderately profitable given its total earning of the 229 545 $589 against a $120 million budget. The film performance had implications for the studio, relatively media and its the further project as it determined the potential for the superhero film to attack audience. Even if the financial returns were not as high, impact on future movie budget. The financial performance of the Ghost Rider influenced substance superhero film, leading studio to release their budget strategies. While high budget remain common, the mixed results promote a more conservative approach to the spending on the special effect and talented in the further projects. Commonly asked questions. How much did Ghost Rider 2007 cost to make? The production cost of Ghost Rider was $120 million. $120 million. Was Ghost Rider 2007 profitable? While it did not reach its break-even point, Ghost Rider earned 2029 lakh 54,589, making it the immediately profitable. Tales from the box office. Nice catch. Ghost Rider flopped its way to a franchise 50 years ago. There are moments where it is easy to forget just how far we have come in terms of the superhero movie over the last 50 years or so. It is easy to complain about the lack of a great modern Superman movie or the fact that it is taking so long to get the Blade Robert going. But these are relatively small nitpicks because, make no mistake, we have come a long way and comic book movie remain without a debut the biggest thing in the Hollywood ring now. With little to no competitions, we need look no further than 2007 Ghost Rider to understand just how much has changed in the last decade and a half. The Nicole Cage-led Marvel comic adaptations celebrated its fifth anniversary this weekend, and in some ways it marked the end of an era. The following year would see the Marvel Cinematic Universe kick off in the end with the release of Iron Man. The Nicole Cage-led Marvel comic adaptation celebrated its 15th anniversary this week, and in some ways it marked the end of an era. The following year would see the Marvel Cinematic Universe kick off in the earnest with the release of Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk, sowing the seed for the now coveted should share universe approach to franchise. Today we are going to look back at Ghost Rider all these years later, examining how it came to be, what went wrong, and how deposit all that went wrong it still managed to get a sequel. Let's dig in. Following the sequence of 2000's X-Men and especially 2002 Spider-Man, it became clear that superhero movie had their place in the blockbuster filmmaking. Gonna were the days of the steel Gonna were the days of the Steel or Nick Fury, agent of the SIELD. Anywhere the days of the talking comic book adaptations seriously or attempting to anyway. It would be survival years before the like of Iron Man and the Dark Knight helped to frame up the formula. The handful of years in between was sort of the like the Wild West, with many attempts made and many failures seen about the timeline, as studio attempt to the cash in onward was surely thought to be a fate, but more than 20 years later is just about the only thing stunning the global box office with the regularity. This particular movie dates back to the early 90s, closer to the success of better 1989 Batman. Marvel was still cashing the ever elvish white whale of the cinematic success in the Hollywood. Ghost Rider went through various irritation with the various creative teams, as is so often the case with the big movie that laughing in adaptation, that laughing in the development hell. It was not until 2003, following Spider-Man, that thing goes seriously under Sony Columbia that things go under Sony Columbia Pictures. The studio scooped up the rights and set Mark Stephen Johnson, the man behind Ben Affleck Daredevil movie, to work his the magic with the Johnny Blaze. As Johnson recalled is an interview with the comicbook.com. It was a dream job for a lifelong fan of the comic. I was a fantastic comic book reader as a kid growing up. I was that 6-year-old kid waiting at the drugstore for the comic to arrive off the truck. Marvel comics were a huge part of my childhood. My world easily revolved around them. I was definitely a true believer. On paper, that what you want, but in that same interview, Johnson described Marvel movie at the time behind the Wild West, as the rights were scattered all over the place at the various studio deposit, other actors supposedly being on paper that what you want, but in the same interview, Johnson described Marvel movie at the time being the Wild West, as the rights were scared all over the place at various studio deposit, other actors supposedly being in the mix. Ghost Rider, with the Johnny Depp expressing interest in the role at one point. Johnson says that it was always Nicolas Cage for the lead role. Instead, there was never talk of the anyone else playing Johnny Blaze, with a wild sporting cast in the law included as the rider. Easy Rider star Peter Fonda as the villain Mephistopheles, Avi Mendes as the Russian Simpon, and the Sam Elliott as the caretaker. Production finally kicked off in the 2005. It's worth nothing that the David's Goyer written of the Batman Beings and many other big DC movie over the last decide and change had intentionally penned a draft of the screenplay that Cage quite liked. Reflecting back on the movie in 2018 with the Jobley, the actor said, Ghost Rider was a movie that always should be an R-rated movie. David Goyer had a brilliant script which I want to do with David, and for whatever reason that just did not let us make the movie. That movie is still a movie that should be made, not with me obviously, but it should be an R-rated movie. Heck, Deadpool was R-rated and that did create Ghost Rider was decided to be a scary superhero with an R rating and the adage, and they just did not have it to work out back then. Ultimately, that not the movie we got, the Ghost Rider movie we did get after suffering survival days. Finally hit theaters in early 2007, resulting in a movie that was not box office success yet somehow result in a sequel anyhow. 2011 Ghost Rider Spirit of the Vacancy. The financial journey. Making its debut in the theaters on the 16th February 2007, just in time for the Valentine's Day weekend. Ghost Rider attempt to review the Marvel hot stick after the then recent disappointment of the X-Men The Last Stand, Electa and the Fantastic Four carrying 110 million production budget. Ghost Rider opened to a decent $45 million deposit, having to contact with a wave of the negative review. It stand domestically, finishing its run with a not treble 150 million, but international audience did not turn out to see Cage as a motorcycle rider with a death wish who sells his soul to the devil, becoming his the personal worldwide. He trapped up with a seemingly distressed $228.7 million per box office mojo. When factoring in making cost, there is zero chance Ghost Rider made money in theaters. Plain and simple. When factoring in making cost, there is zero chance Ghost Rider made money in theaters. Plain and simple. Studio keep roughly half of the box office ticket sales, which would hardly account for the budget in this case. A common rule of the thumb for defining a movie approximate break-even point is to double the production budget in order to account for the cost of making and the distribution. Even if we assume the marketing budget was the relatively modest frank, and it probably was not, this certainly did not scam success, especially when coupled with the pure lack of the positive buzz. And yet a sequel happened anyway. In 2011, Cash returned as the Johnny Blaze in a more modest budget sequel. Ghost Rider Speech of the Vigency, it made a whole lot less at the box office, rounding out its the run with the 149 million less distress, which was admittedly less disaster, giving the 57 million production budget. Part of what likely helped get Spirit of the Vigency made is the fact that Ghost Rider generated an impressive 104 million in home video sales per the numbers, not to mention claim rights and the other ancillary revenue Sony probably benefited from in the age before streaming took over book when DVD sales were far more rapid. Still, Ghost Rider or more or less flopped its way to becoming a short-lived franchise at a time when the tide was returning for Marvel and the superhero movie in the journal. The film rights to the characters reverted back to Marvel in 2013, and a version of the Ghost Rider. Still, Ghost Rider more or less flopped its way to becoming a short-lived franchise at a time when the tide was turning for Marvel and superhero movie in the journal. The film rights to the character reverted back to Marvel in 2013, and a version of the Ghost Rider ultimately appeared in the Agent of the SHIELD that was supposed to the Laugh, a spin-off the before those plans went belly up. The circle of the life. The lesson connected with in Most of the scenes committed by Ghost Rider in terms of the movie itself have since been avoided by the Hollywood business now and tend to be taken every serious, and Ghost Rider feels like a relic of the past even though it was just 50 years ago. Comparatively, Iron Man still seems fresh and refreshing deposit the fact that it came out very next year. This is no need to hop on any lesson here as it's the patent to superhero cinema in the journal. Those lessons have been well learned. However, in the streaming hour, there is utter deposit for the franchise content that result in a lot of the ambitions. Decision making Paramount has the already giving the green light to Sonic the Hedgehog 3 as well as a live action series. For example, before Sonic the Hedgehog 2 even hits the theaters, all because the first movie did well at the box office. Though not outdistantly great, this is the era we are living in the and what the streaming war have brought upon as well. It would, in my humble opinion, behave studio and streaming service not to put carts before horse. Just look at what happened with the DC film in adaptation to catch up to the MCU in a hurry instead of deleting things. Alvin naturally it go messy. Look at Universal attempting to couple together a monster movie universe with the dark universe that got previously check notice. One movie insta ambitions plan before closing up shop. When the film side look at what Langstage did the John Wick, a non-of action movie was received well and the studio wisely decided to pull that theaters further, resulting in one of the best action franchises of the modern era. There are right and wrong ways to do this. The main thing is not to double down on a bad idea for the sake of a franchise. Nothing about the Ghost Rider Scream franchise and that irritation of it should have been a franchise great area being a franchise. Credit where credit is due though. Sony was wise enough to heavily reduce the budget the second time around, which is something other studio could definitely stand to look at when crafting blockbuster in the post-pandemic era. Don't tempt the film to fail with impossible high franchise expectations. There are right and wrong ways to do this. The main thing is not to double down on a bad idea for the sake of a franchise. Nothing about Ghost Rider Scream franchise and that attention of it should not have been a franchise. Credit where credit is due though Sony was wise enough to heavily reduce the budget the second time around, which is something other studio could definitely stand to look at when crafting blockbuster in the post-pandemic era. Don't tempt the film to fail with the impossible high franchise expectations. There's no deposing that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is one of the biggest blockbuster franchises in film history. However, there are some Marvel films that the pandemic, the MCU that deserve the same praise, while there are some misfires. Look, Marvel had to start somewhere, right? Most of the Marvel films that they came out before 2008 Iron Man deserve a second look, not only to appreciate how far Marvel has come but also to remember that at one point the X-Men were the superhero team to beat at the box office, not the Avengers. Some of the characters that were features in the Marvel movie or MCU are designed to return in near future. Are destined to return in the near future. We have already had news about the Fantastic Four and the Blade and the X-Men are remoted to be coming soon. It still be exciting to see what Marvel Studio has in the store for these characters. It will be exciting to see what Marvel Studio has in store for these characters. But it also important to remember how these characters make their live action debut. So on that note, here is a list of all the pre-MCU Marvel films that the recite theatrical release ranked from the Rose to B. Howard the Duck was the first live-action adaptation of a Marvel property. It was also the company's first book office bomb. Released in 1986, Marvel teamed with the gorgeous Lusa to bring the characters of the Howard the Duck to life using a team of the Pope Trace, Lee Thomas, the Ribbon and the Jerry Jones rounded out the human cast. Criticized sequel Howard the Duck for its poor special effects, boring story, lackluster acting and well, pretty much everything else about it. The film was ahead of its time with most of the comic book. Surely time lost in the transitions, however, the Duck has since made a couple of the appearances in the MCU, primarily throughout the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, much to fans' delight. For the part, the Thompson has already picked Marvel a sequel, so who knows? Maybe Marvel will take another chance on the ill Trump fool in the not too distant further. Ghost Rider has had a through time on the silver screen, while this 2007 film was the suddenly with the harsh CGI effect and shaky written in performed well enough to generate a sequel film in 2012, Ghost Rider Spiritual of the Vigency, which received even worse review than Ghost Rider has had a tough time on the silver screen, while this 2007 film was suddenly with harsh CGI effect and shaky written. It performed well enough to generate a sequel film in 2012, Ghost Rider. Speech of Agency, which received even worse review than the original. All thought the movie has a decent cast that include Nicole Cage, who plays Johnny Blaze, Evie Mendes, Sam Elliott, and Peter Fonda. The film is ultimately more style than substance. At least the film stands true to the source material, following Blaze's deal with the devil that led to him become a visual for the speech of the Vigency. Still, fans of the Ghost Rider may be better off just watching season 4 of the Marvel Agents of the SHIELD, which features Garble, Luna, and the Roach Eyes version of the Vigilante. Just not wait. Spin off on Holo. According to report, that project is dead and the gone. Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. While the original Fantastic Four took wholesome approach to Marvel's first film, in 2007 sequel led a lot to be the described Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer ramps up the Chinese from the first movie, which was the already pretty cheesy, has a plot that does not really go anywhere and fails to deliver a decent portrayal of the Ghost, one of Marvel's all-time best villains. The original Fantastic Four cast Jesse Alba, Chase Evan, Lorna Garfield, Michael Chicky, and Carrie Washington are joined by the famous motion captures actor duo John and the Laverna Fishhole, who provide the suffer body and voice, respectively. Still, even with this star-studded cast, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer performed so poorly at the box office that it's ultimately anti. Grooved Michael Cheeks and Carrie Washington are joined by famous motion capture actor Dioch and the Levinson Fabry, who provide the suffer body and voice respectively. Still, even with this star-sudden cast, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer performed so poorly at the box office that it ultimately anti-franchise. It was also the latest Marvel movie release before the MCU officially being in 2008 with the Iron Man, the X-Men: The Last Stand. Following the critical and box office success of X2 X-Men United, it's understandable that folks felt like it needed to ramp things up for the Trigger final entry. X-Men The Last Stand, however bigger, is not always better. An already full roster was joined by numerous new characters who had literally more to do than the fade into the background, all thought casting Elliott Page and the Kelsey Grammer as Kitty Paradine and the Beat, respectively, was inspired. Neither characters was more than a no-dimensional addition to the theme. The film failed attempt to adapt the dark Ponzi Sage, widely regarded as one of the Marvel best stories, left a bad taste in the fans' mouth. What should have been a story about Jenny Carey fighting for the board for life and her soul spiritual. The film failed attempt to adapt the dark policy sage, widely regarded as one of the Marvel best stories, left a bad taste in fans' mouth. What should have been a story about Jenny Carey fighting for both her life and her soul pitched into a tale of the mental illness that turned Jean into a clawed blockbuster kill that the film claims is an approximately mess of the CGI does not help either here shopping that the MCU were to justify to Jean and the Ponaxi story someday. By the time that the original Spider-Man franchise reach is not 30 entry, all the magic of the previous two sequels disappeared. The storyline, which was based on the Elliott costume saga, was all over the place. The influence of new characters included Thomas Haddon, Curious Sandom, Topher Grace, Vanna, and the Brucey Daddles. However, Gracie's day overload the film cast. There were simply too many people and too little time to fully explore each of them. The film ambition tried to cram Venom origin, Harry Obson transformation in the new Globen, a heel turn for the Peter and the recognize of Uncle Ben's death so that Stan Man was involved into a single movie. It's so much and just make the interior film long. Concluded mess. Though Sam Raimi's Spider-Man series remains a favorite among Marvel fans, Spider-Man 3 will also be the low point of an otherwise perfect trilogy. The Punisher. Up until the 2004 release of The Punisher, most comic book films were rated PG-13 in order to appeal to the widest range of people at the box office. However, The Punisher was rated R. Many members of the audience did not know how to take that. Since The Punisher was still a comic book adaptation, people typically assume it was safe to take their kids to see it. Ultimately, their R rating, while every much justified, led to limited success at the box office. The Punisher is an exercise in the brutality following the comic Welcome Book Frank storyline, which decide the dreams of the character into a film at a typical running time. Gateway Thomas Jenny did a fine job capturing Frank Castle's total soul and the Johnny Travel descents. The Punisher is an exercise is the brutally following the comic Welcome Home Frank storyline, which deposit the death of the character's interior film at a typical running getaway. Thomas Jane did a fine job capturing Frank Castle, Trode Soul, and John Travel is described as the gangster Howard Stant. All thought too much of the movie focus on the travel at Jane's expense, but it is not enough to get the audience emotionally involved. Netflix take on the characters did a better job of fleshing out the Punisher, even though it did not go over well with every critic either. While any film that included Hulk can be excited to rely on the CGI 2003 Hulk, thankfully uses the surprisingly inside the movie spied for more intimately story that focus on the multitude to the Brucey Banner contents, not just a big green guy, told through the lens of the frame director and Lee Hulk, feather Red Banner in the title role along with the Jennifer Connelly as Patty Rose and Nick Nolte as the Brucey father Brain Turner. The star-studded cast deliver in the almost every scenes with the Banner and the Connelly sharing genuine chemistry and not surviving as the ultimately perfections of the daddy issue. The film performed well at the box office, all thought not anything close to the MCU's stand take, and Lee split screen editing designed to evoke comic book panels involving if nothing else. However, the downfall of Hulk is that it takes a small scale approach to a larger than life characters. Electra. Jennifer Jenner and the Ben Affleck on-screen chemistry in 2003 Daredevil was so misleading that the studio decided to give Jenner her own spineful in form of the 2005 Stendhal film Elektra. While Daredevil was not exactly praised by Marvel fans, it did well enough financially that Fox revised. There were more story to tell about the two characters. Elektra is a visual masterpiece in a lot of ways. The cinematography, listing, and the wardrobe are all on point. However, the biggest problem with the Electra is the written and the overall plot. Yes, we get to see some of the Electra backstory, but the majority of it included her previous interaction with the flick Matt Murdock were cut from the theatrical release. Jenna did her best with what she was given, but ultimately monography were not interesting is seeing more of the flag or for that matter of Daredevil following this film. Daredevil, following the success of 20th Century Fox X-Men in 2000, the studio began looking for other Marvel characters that could include it in their begun superhero universe. While the first X-Men was a larger scale project, Daredevil was meant to be a bit more grounded, rooted in the tragedy and the featuring superhero without powerful maintained ability. Daredevil was meant to be a bit more grounded, rooted in the tragedy and featuring superhero without powerful maintained ability. Daredevil was released in 2008. Daredevil was released in 2003, and while it performed fairly well, it received mixed reaction from audience and the criticals. Admittedly, the director cut has been much better received. It's hard to point exactly what went wrong with his fun. The film's stellar casting included Ben Affleck in the title role, Jennifer Jenner as Electra, Michael Clare Dana as the Kingpin, Glenn Ferry as the Bruce Lee, and the further MCU director Johnny Forever as the Foggy Nelson. The film adaptation various classic comic storyline by the Frank Miller, but ultimately failed at bringing Matt Metriok depth to the big screen. In 2004, Blady Trinity Vestal spins written as Marvel Vampire Hunter and he brings along some friends. This time he joined by a group of the human vampire hunters called the Night Talkers, a group that includes Danny Roldan as the Hannibal King and the Jessica Bai and the Ablia Visters, the daughter of Chris. Dramatic Basil Park Pussy and the Nesta Lona also star in this action-packed collection to the Blade trilogy. While the film received mixed reviews and in spite of some odd production issue, Blade Trinity performed well and went on to become a cult favorite with a soul storyline that they continue to build out Blade Word, impressive fight sequence and a new take on the Dracula. Blade Trinity is also of the Fenty final film as in a pre-MCU Marvel tragedy, all thought with the competition like X-Men, The Last Stand, and the Spider-Man 3 that not saying too much. Spider-Man 2, widely regarded as not only one of the best comic book movie sequel but also one of the fantastic superhero film ever made. 2004 Spider-Man 2 saw Tobey Maguire and rest of the Spider-Man cast previous their roles under the direction of retiring Sam Raimi. Even Willem Dafoe, who Roman Hobson died in the first movie, finds a way to make an appearance. What makes this sequel stand out is that not only does it have some of the most inspiring action scenes of any Marvel movie, but it also provides considerable characters development for almost every single characters in the main cast. Peter Searsner's relationship with the both Mary Jane and Harry Hobson, James Franco are explored in much more depth this time around. What makes this sequel stand out is that not only does it have some of the most inspiring action scenes of any Marvel movie, but it also provides considerable characters development for almost every single characters in the main cast. Peter Searsner's relationship with the both Mary Jane and Harry Hobson are explored in much more depth this time around. there even a flesh out backstory for the Aleph Molina director Octopus, a fan favorite character who is settled to reporter in the upcoming MCU film Spider-Man No Way Home. Blade 2. Following success of 1998, Blade 2 was released in 2002, turning a pre-MCU one-off into a fully fledged superhero franchise through the lens of the master director Guillermo del Toro. The sequel finds Glad being forced to work with an elite vampire death sequence called the Block Pack to stop a new stand of the other vampires. Features the Walking Dead star Norman Reedus and the Ron Perlman co-star with the Spanish who returned as the title Dave Walker. This sequel success where many others on this list fail. It progressed the main character story, it shines a light on played human collaborations and it explores inner working of a vampire cluster. The special effects are 10 times better this time around as well, especially when the vampire who feed on their own kind transform into even more terrifying variant of themselves. Then again with the deal tarot at the helm. Do you really accept anything else? Fantastic Four. While the film certainly has chasey moments, 2005 Fantastic Four was the film legitimately live-action adaptation of the Marvel First Family. The less said about Roger Corman never release date the better, with inspired casting like a pre-caption America Chris, even as Johnny Storm and the Michael Crissy as Ben Creek. The actress certainly looked the part, and the film itself is an acceptable action of one of the Marvel most famous origin stories. The film has a fun, laid-back vibe as a storyline that fairly faithful to the source material, although it does not devil in the showing how Dr. Doom originally met and become a rival to theme. Plus, Fantastic Four creates Bones Point for the trying to deliver the cast by having Jessica Alba, a Latina actress, and Carrie Washington, who is the affecting America play shows Doom and the a Latina actress, and Carrie Washington, who is African American, plays Sue Storm and the Elisa Master, respectively. Both characters are traditionally portrayed as the casting in the comic. Before the Avengers made box office history, Marvel Band of the Merry Maintains took in the multiplex by storm. X-Men, the first live-action adaptation of the popular Marvel franchise, was released in 2000 and became one of the most successful comic book film in history. It was a well-orchestrated introduction into the world of the X-Men and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, with the standout performance by the written Stiffer in the Callan, Anna Pana, and the Hugh Jackman, who first appear in what still is the significant role. Storyline that mirror to real life operation of the specified ground help people this film to the top tier of this list. The only negative things about X-Men are that the plot is a bit of a shallow burn. Some of the dialogues in Signoworthy and both Halle Berry and famed Jason as Tom and the Jenny Cree, respectively, are poorly utilized, although those operation of the specified ground help propel this film to the top tier of list. The only negative things about X-Men are that the plot is a bit of a solo burn. Some of the dialogues in Selma Worthy and both Halle Berry and famed Jasons as Tom and Jenny Cree, respectively, are poorly utilized, although those who characters would get more time to shine in the sequel X2. After cinematography review brings and the optimistic Superman movie of the 80s and the darkly goth and increasingly ridiculously Batman film of the 90s, audience were ready for a different mover. Batman film of the 90s, audience were ready for a different, more mature type of the superhero flick. In 1998, New Line took a chance on a little-known comic book character called Blade, laughing the first successful live-action Marvel adaptations, complete with an R rating for action, horror and the violence. Blade was not your present superhero movie. Wesley Spine lights up the screen as a dark, humored human vampire hybrid who hunts his own kind. Chris Christopher star as the Blade mentor whistles, and Stephen Troff plays Decent Frost, the lead of a modern-day vampire-inspired darkly atmosphere and boosting an excellent soundtrack. Blade still has some of the best action scenes in modern superhero cinema and highlights the inner rebel Blade faces as he tries to find his place in the world. Spider-Man. Following the success of the first two Blade films, Sony decided to bring another live-action Marvel icon to life in the form of Spider-Man. The iconic comic book character's heart recently experienced newfound properly thanks to the self-titled his Saturday morning cartoon that ran from 1994-1999 on Fox, and the introduction of Ultimately Spider-Man, a fringe take of the Spider-Man early days in comic shows. Marvel and Sony brought Peter Park and the company to the big screen with the help of the genre director Sam Raimi. The results speak for themselves. Raimi struck gold by casting Tobey Maguire as the Peter Parker, Kristen Dunst as the Mary Jana Westons, Jam Francisco as the Harry Obson, and Willem Dafoe as the Norma Obson, aka the Green Goblin. Aka the Green Goblin, the film survived as a wonderful introduction into the world of the web with top-notch writing that does not talk down to audience. Spider-Man became one of the earlier superhero blockbuster remains a fan favorite. To this day, it's still the stand against which all other solo superhero movies are judged. X2 X-Men United, one of the most riveting comic book film ever made. X2 X-Men United is still per MCU film that feels the most of it could take place in the MCU. The sequel to the original film from 2000, X2 ups the takes on every level, more character that reside and the almost even distribution of screen time, a storyline that brings together, maintains both good and evil to fight against a common theaters, and of course great action sequence. There are little bit of everything in this film. We get some Bonner backstory, we get the comic out. There are Ponex's Sega days, which was as exacting before. We saw how that turned out, and we finally see Storm and Jean present as the hero that were born to be, with huge battle, high seek, loss of the character development, and even a little bit of the franchise. X2 is the best pre-MCU Marvel film. The 2011 Marvel film Ghost Rider speech of vacancy features beloved internet memes and the actor Nicolas Cage reprising his role as the fire biker anti-hero Johnny Blaze. Having sold his soul to the devil, Master Fields to save his father from the cancer at night, Blaze becomes the Ghost Rider, a vengeful speech who feeds off evil and the consume the soul of the censor, complete with the fairy skills and the leather motorcycle jacket. Cage embodies one of the color and scariest superheroes in the Marvel canon. Released in 2007, the first film ended with Blaze waving to use his power to edit the innocent and to fight in speech of agency. However, the character is in hiding as they struggle with the darkness of the demon inside him. The Ghost Rider soon return, though when an alcohol make name Morphe. Released in 2007, the first film ended with Blaze vowing to use his power to edit the innocent and to fight Mephistopheles in speech of agency. However, the character in his hiding has he struggled with the darkness of the demon inside him. The Ghost Rider soon returns, though when an alcoholic monk named Mori seek his aid in the protecting a mother and her son from the forces of the devil, and Blaze discover Mephistopheles has rather big plans for the child. Ghost Rider saves the son of the devil. Johnny Blaze learns that the boy Danny is the son of the Mephistopheles as and made a deal with him in exchange for her life. If the devil captures Danny, he did become a director visual and gave him extraordinary power in our world. Mario reveals to Blaze that the Ghost Rider was originally a speech of the Justic name Zertham, but he was broken by being captured and turned in hell. The monk restored Blaze humanity at least, only for Danny to be taken back by Mephistopheles moments. As the forces of good fight to save the child in the climactic final scenes, Moyo is killed and the Danny must giving Blaze the rider powers again before danning himself. The Ghost Rider stops the devil and sends him back to hell before reviving Danny and returning him to his mother. No longer the speech of vacancy but the speech of the Justic Blaze rays of the flaming on his body now blue. Speech of Agency would mark the last cinematic outing for the Cage as the Ghost Rider. After disappointed at the box office, he publicly claimed to be the finish with the characters, the flaming skirt overreach. Small Award finally makes his the MCU appearance in the Agent of the SHIELD scene, for this time played by Gabi Lona, which led to a Ghost Rider snipe-off series on the Holo that was ultimately cancelled before adding a different Ghost Rider could be handling our way in the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of the Madness. Where you like Marvel Ghost Rider or hate him, you have to admit at least one thing he did make for a killer tattoo. Marvel latest Ghost Rider series regularly features two different Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze, who first appeared in the 17 Ghost Rider series and was played by Nicolas Cage in two live-action movies, and Danny Cage, who took on the speech of vacancy in the 90s. At the same time, the Ruby Rogue Ghost Rider, the new comic instructions will also appear on the TV. The fourth season of the Agents of the SHIELD has been appearing regularly in Avengers. The Cosmic Ghost Rider has shown up in a variety of the comics. In a world within the Soul Tones, we have seen the hero Ghost Rider and the amalgam of the Ghost Rider and Black Panther and the 19th century native American Ghost Rider Kushala popped up in the Mysteries War of the Realm Journey into the Mystery. In other words, there are a lot of different versions of the Ghost Rider, and the many, though not all of them, share a common tool, the Halifax chain. The chain is capable of a variety of different tasks and the ability, and is the mysterious in the sense that it does not always follow the same kinds you would accept from such mystical weapons. For an idea of what we make, keep reading to learn the untold truth of the Ghost Rider Halifax chain. There's hardly an era of the human history that exists without a Ghost Rider. The 9th century Native American Ghost Rider and the sorcerer superhero Kushala is introduced in 2016 Doctor Strange's. The origin story of the Panther Ghost Rider is revealed in 2018 Avengers 7, and over the years we have catch glimpse in the comic of Ghost Rider from the World War I, from the area that the Viking roamed the scenes, and more. In 2019, Absolute Crunchers symbiote of Vacancy 1, after Alexandra Jones is killed by the Carnage and sent to hell, Johnny Blaze introduced her to a crowd of the waiting Ghost Riders. Survival of women appear to be from the centuries before our one, and they do not all use the Halifax chain. Colsa does not use a chain, nor does Alexander Jones. Johnny Blaze introduce her to a crowd of the waiting Ghost Riders, survival of whom appear to be from Curies before our own, and they do not all use the Halifax chain. Kushala does not use a chain, nor does Alexander Jones. Johnny Blaze eventually used one, but spent many activities years with it. While there are many versions of the characters throughout history, we only see brief glimpses of those brief glimpses don't included the Halifax chain. In other words, While there may be as many Ghost Riders as there are Green Lanterns, he Halifax chain is not a mandatory tool for a Ghost Rider. A Ghost Rider in atmosphere granted the chain as soon as they taken on the speech of the vacancy as they do the flaming skull and the manipulation of the hellfire. Danny Cage was the original chain welder. You may be surprised to learn that as important as the hellfire chain has become to the Ghost Rider mythos, Johnny Blaze spent a lot of years without one. His first Ghost Rider series lasted 10 years, from the 1973 to 1983. For all those years, Johnny Blaze did not use a Halifax chain. It is not until the series that, being in 1990, with the Danny Cage as the new Ghost Rider, that a Halifax chain is introduced. Once Johnny Blaze returned to the spotlight as a Ghost Rider, he was using his own Halifax chain, and strangely the chain became the significations weapon of the many Ghost Riders, included ones who were never portrayed wielding them. For example, a character named J.T. James is introduced, who, while not a Ghost Rider himself, his own Halifax chain, and strangely the chain became the signature weapon of many Ghost Riders, included ones who were never portrayed wielding them. For example, a character named J.T. James is introduced, who, while not a Ghost Rider himself, has the ability to manipulate hellfire and owns a hellfire chain. Apparently become he, a descendant of the Wild West. Here Carter said, in speech of the fact that Sad was never portrayed as owning or using a hellfire chain. There are more than one hellfire chain. Multiple heroes have foiled the famous Hammer Mjolnir, Audition's Beta Ray Bill, Johnny Foster, and the Captain America have all, at one time or another, proven worthy of the weapon. It was always the same weapon, except for when there might occasionally be some funky time rape stuff going on. They could not all just hang out together with their own spread personalized Majoloners. But while the bond between a Ghost Rider and their Halifax chain is as strong, if not stronger, as the connections between a Thor and their hammer, the chain and the hammer are two very different animals. You don't have to prove yourself worthy of the Halifax chain, and there's some than one. Ghost Riders are not around to Halifax chain upon taking on the speech of the vacancy. They have to make it or the otherwise acquire it themselves. The Halifax chain Robbie Rice uses is not the same as the Danny Cage, not are either are the same as Johnny Blaze. The Patrick Ghost Rider make his the Halifax chain in 29. In 2019, Avengers 7 out of the bonds he finds in the cave of his enemy, cannibalistic monster Wendigo. Halifax is the primary weapon of any Ghost Rider, more than chain or motorcycles or leather class first. Halifax, also called Soul Fire, is all in the name. It is not really fire, at least not how we think of it. It's been described as both freezing and scorching, and it can burn underwater or in the vacuum of the pants. It's often seen outlining Ghost Rider weapons and the vehicles. It's terrified that place all around Ghost Rider iconic skull. Ghost Rider can cancel the Halifax from out of their bag in any way they choose. Ghost Rider have been show blasting enemies with it from their eyes, mouth, and the hands. In 2017, Doctor Strange and the Suicide Superhero 3 Koshla transformed into a being appearing to be the completely made from the Halifax, atop the back of a Halifax beat that did not exact movements before. In 2018, Thorn 16 comic Ghost Rider uses the Halifax to create a nuclear-sized explosion that wipes out the interior and his hordes. The Halifax is the especially what makes it possible for Ghost Rider to do everything he does with the Halifax chain. Without it, you might be able to give somebody a nasty cut across the cheek or even knock them out. But you are not going to be able to wrap up around thorns a few dozen times or the committed it to return into a dozen skin, strike your enemies, and then returns to become a chain again. The Halifax chain is more than a weapon, as Thor is to this the hammer, and Sliver Stuff is to his board. The Ghost Rider is like to their chain physically. This is what makes it the possible for Ghost Rider to perform such amazing feat with their chain when it goes longer than it at the first appears, when it somehow managed to wrap up around multi-target at the same time, when it can spray into the dozen of link that all turn into the projects. Ghost Rider can to do this because they are very coordinate. They are mentally telling the chain what to do. Ghost Rider does not even have to be holding the chain to make it work. It's one of the reason ways is the Halifax chain is the similar, as stranger as it may seem, to the power rights of the Green Lanterns. It's one of the reason why in some ways is the Halifax chain is the similar, as stranger as it may seem, to the power rings of the Green Lanterns powered by Halifax and the under the material commanded of a Ghost Rider. The limits of a Halifax chain are the same as the limits of its the master imaginations. No one knows how long the Halifax chain can get. Regardless of which Halifax chain we are talking about or who is using it, the chain has the ability to grow to whatever length the Ghost Rider needs at any given time. Some comic book read during of the Ghost Rider have the chain almost appearing as long as Spider-Man web. Just keep pumpkin toes out of his web spinner. If there are limit to how long the Chinese can get, we don't know it. Ghost Rider has used it to behind the arms and legs of the multiple range target or to wrap a dozen of time around the same target. If Ghost Rider needs to get longer, it gets longer. We have to see something as extreme as say a Ghost Rider growing their Halifax chain to wrap around a moon so they can throw it out of the orbit. But considering all we have seen them do, the argument could be if Ghost Rider needs it to get longer, it's longer. We have not seen something as extreme as, say, a Ghost Rider growing their Halifax chain to wrap around a moon so they can hug it out of the orbit. But considering all we have seen them do, the argument could be more. We have not seen that happen because no Ghost Rider has needed it to happen yet. The Halifax chain can transform into different weapons. On adventure, the Halifax chain has over a weapon like, say, Thor humor major is that the while Thor hammer is a hammer, Ghost Rider Halifax chain can be just about that kind of the weapon Ghost Rider want it to be. The Halifax chain is the incredibility which tells Ghost Rider can use it exactly as you did except like a filer to lash enemies with. They can use it like a lashes or two behind their enemies, pinning their arms and wrapping the chain around the over and over again. The chain will go riding upon command so it can be used like a bow staff, some versions of the chain, and with a sharp dagger like the object so Ghost Rider can spear it through enemies and use them near. New Ghost Rider showcase extra power that makes him deadlier than the original. The hood grants Ghost Rider Invisible a unique power rarely seen before, enhancing its the deadly capability. The hood's dark history in the mysterious and power equations make him the deadliest Ghost Rider in the Marvel history. The addition of the invisibility to Ghost Rider arsenal makes him the brilliant than another visions before him. Ghost Rider has always been an instantly powerful force of the nature, no matter who the speech chosen host happened to be, though the latest host proves that's not necessarily the case, as this new one has certainly made a difference when it comes to elevated Ghost Rider already immense power. And that ascension has just been proven truly with a new power show cast by Ghost Rider that makes him the deadlier than the original. In a previous of the Ghost Rider Final Vigencies 4 by the Benjamin Parisi and the Danny Kim, the Hood Who has recently taken up the mantle as the new Ghost Rider. In a brief for Ghost Rider Final Vigencies 4 by Benjamin Parisi and Danny Kim, the Hood Who has recently taken up the mantle as the new Ghost Rider, target as a gambling ring in a Sago. The criminal headquarters were in the basement of an otherwise average retirement, and the Ghost Rider stuck in and murdered everyone in the building using his all new power to do so. Understand invisibility. So far in the final Vacancy series, the Hood has proven to be hyper-valiant to a degree that Ghost Rider has rarely exhibited before. This was no accident either, as the speech of the Vacancy deliverable chose someone who would wholeheartedly accept the domestic power it offered. Unlike previous hosts like the Johnny Blaze, who constantly forced Ghost Rider and they wanted nothing more than to be the right of it. And now the speech of the vacancy is certain, getting its speech. And this new power to return invisible will allow Ghost Rider to enact its brutal vacancy more effectively than ever. The Hood gave Ghost Rider the power of invisibility, making him the most unique host. Usually, Ghost Rider is the entity that imbues its host with the untold power, not the other way around. However, in this case, the Hood is the one who upgrades Ghost Rider, as invisibility is something Ghost Rider has never been able to do in the past, yet is in an ability the Hood has been flexing for years. Using the domestic clock that originate from the Dorimo, the Hood has the power to return visible for as long as he can hold his the breath. Since Ghost Rider does not need to breathe, the spiritual of the vacancy can stay invisible for as long as it need to, thanks to the pre-existing power of its host. Yet is an ability the Hood has been flexing for years. Rider has been able to do in the past, yet is an ability the Hood has been flexing for years. Using the domestic lock that originated from the Dromo, the Hood has the power to return invisible for as long as he can hold his breath. Since Ghost Rider does not need to breathe, the speeches of the Vigency can stay invisible for as long as it need to, thanks to the pre-exacting power of its host. The Hood is the proving to be the deadliest Ghost Rider in the Marvel history. Parker Robin has a longer history in the Marvel comic of studying and the acquiring occult artificials of the power. Robin's Hood is the only one of the many objects of otherworld power he will not to mention this practice in the Matheism and spell casting. In other words, the Hood is an extremely powerful and the utterly ruthless character in the Marvel canon, proven true when the Hood wielded the infantry gauntlet. And the addition of the speech of the vacancy has not only eliminated his own deadlines but that of Ghost Rider, making him the deadliest visions of the domestic another in history. While this accountably would not be last new power wired by Ghost Rider so long as the speech of while this acuity want to be the last new power wield by Ghost Rider so long as the speech of the vacancy stays beyond to the Hood, it's certainly one of the most terrifying, as it allows him to remain totally untouched by his victim until it's too late for them. With the power of invisibility, Marvel New Ghost Rider is easily deadline than the original Johnny Blaze and arguable any other Ghost Rider before him. Ghost Rider Final Vacancy 4 by Marvel Comic is available 5 June 2024. Ryan Gosling Jones Avengers Dom stays cast as Ghost Rider in the MCU art. Ryan Gosling is transformed into the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of the Ghost Rider in exacting average domestic day art. Nicolas Cage gave life to the Johnny Blaze incarnation of the Ghost Rider into live action movie Deadpool and the Wolverine, one of the MCU most successful movie, originally planned to have Cage written as the character, but that ended up not working out. Marvel also brought another version of the Ghost Rider from the comic to live action in Agents of the Shield, the TV show, which has a murky state as the MCU canon or not. Had the last of the star Gabriel Lona play the Ruby Rose versions of the Ghost Rider. At the moment, Marvel also brought another version of the Ghost Rider from the comic to live action in Agents of the Shield, the TV show, which has a Mercury stat as MCU canon or not. Had The Last of Us star Gabriel Lona play the Ruby Rose versions of the Ghost Rider. At the moment, Lona is not set to return. Imagine what Ryan Gosling could look like as the MCU Ghost Rider in Avengers Doomsday. In the past, Gosling had been rumored for another MCU role. Nova wished the dump back. However, the actor revealed that he wants to play Ghost Rider. He could be a surprise addition to Avengers Doomsday cast, and the fan art show how well it would work. Could Ryan Gosling play Ghost Rider in Avengers Doomsday? While Ryan Gosling has no around project at Marvel Studio, he will be the leading man of one of the Destiny biggest upcoming film. Gosling will team up with the Deadpool and the Wolverine director Sean Levy in Star Wars Starfights movie. The would create in a director connection for the Gosling to join us MCU with the enough Frenching experience under his belt. Since Ghost Rider was almost using in the Deadpool and the Wolverine, Levy could have been one of the help Gosling get the characters on the big screen based on his acting credit. Gosling and has shown time. And since Ghost Rider was almost used in the Deadpool and the Wolverine, Levy could even be the one to help Gosling get the characters on the big screen. Based on his acting credit, Gosling has showtime and the agent that not only he is a box office drop, Barbie but the has Ghost Rider personality down drive. Every MCU Avengers movie. The Avengers release year 2012, Avengers Age of the Ultron. Release years 2015, Avengers Infinity War, 2018, Avengers Endgame, 2019, Avengers Doomsday, 2026, Avengers Secret Wars, 2027. With the Marvel Studio president Kevin Feige aware that Gosling wants to play Ghost Rider, his MCU debut really seems like only a matter of time. Avengers Doomsday full cast have yet to be revealed, given the ultimately role in the story Gosling could. With the Marvel Studio president Kevin Feige aware that Gosling wants to play Ghost Rider, his MCU debut really seems like only a matter of time. Avengers Doomsday full cast has yet to be revealed, giving the multiple role in the story. Gosling could easily be the MCU main version of the Ghost Rider or a variant from an alternate universe. One take on whether Ryan Gosling could play Ghost Rider in Avengers Doomsday. I would love to see Ryan Gosling as MCU Ghost Rider, while Avengers Doomsday is not the movie I would have expected to see him debut in. I think it could work. The MCU has excited for these 17 years. Through other universes coming together, we could learn of the Gosling Ghost Rider with the characters coming to Earth 6016 and 616 and staying. Avengers Secret War is the run forced to Robert the MCU, much like the event it based on died for the comic. As such, is Gosling Ghost Rider were to debut in the Avengers Doomsday, he could. Avengers Secret War is the rumored to reboot the MCU much like even it is based on date for the comic. As such, if Gosling, Ghost Rider were to debut in the Avengers Doomsday, he could become an active part of the franchise after Saint Robert. With a Midnight Sins movie, Roman Ghost Rider would be perfect for the supranational team. Gosling has the star power to lead his own MCU franchise if Marvel wants to get fans to back Ghost Rider from the moments the debut, then the actor is the perfect choice for the role. With his instinct in the playing the characters, no, if Ghost Rider is in Avengers Doomsday, I bet he will be played by Ryan Gosling. Why Ghost Rider revealing are so bad? Deposit being an overall box office success, the 2007 Marvel movie Ghost Rider received negative review from the both cities and the audience alike. Starting Nicolas Cage as the thriller Johnny Blaze, Ghost Rider was the Sony Deposing being and the overall box office success, 2007 Marvel movie Ghost Rider received negative review from the both cities and the audience alike. Starting Nicole Cage as the thriller Johnny Blaze, Ghost Rider was Sony Pictures' attempt to capitalize on their Spider-Man success with the another Marvel character in this cast. The Ghost Rider as a character who sold his soul to the devil in the comic. The story of Ghost Rider follow famous stunt motorcycle rider Johnny Blaze, who as a child sold his soul to the Masterfuls in the exchange for the curing his father cancer. When the demon collect on their bargain, he makes Johnny the story of Ghost Rider follows famous stunt motorcycle rider Johnny Blaze, who as a child sold his soul to the Masterfuls in the exchange for the curing his father cancer. When the demon collect on their bargain, he makes Johnny the new Ghost Rider. Masterpiece blaming domestic beauty hunter inhabited by the speech of the vacancy. Unfortunately, while the comics are extremely dark, the movie adaptation of Ghost Rider took a decidedly more campy approach, which did not land well with the most revenge. The film certainly holds a 26 on the Rotten Tomatoes but has a 10 over 5.2 on IMDb and a 90% approval rating on the Google reviews. So, why does the film have such a bad reputation? When the first Ghost Rider movie was released in 2007, fans were excited to see an on-screen adaptation of the speech of the vacancy in all his the fairy glory, but taking a non-comic accurate approach. Sound fan as well as criticized who were actors to strong comic book movie like X-Men, Spider-Man, and the Batman beings. With its sequel-ready revelations, Ghost Rider embodies franchise hopes that may be deadly by a certain characters who more funny than fighting. As for Mr. Cage, the only thing he should be fearing in his the manager. It's entertaining to watch all how he do his things with his fairy chain and he's the performance star. But for a comic book with a rebel speech, the adaptation feels obdentally conversations. If the facts are all you care about, it won't matter that the rest of the movie is literally more than a series of the pose and really tribal dialogues. Nicolas Cage turns himself down considerable to play Johnny Blaze, a man who sells his soul to the devil and must act a hell of a beauty hunter in the return. But for once you wish he had dark it up. It would at least give the exposition scenes some life. While most criticize Planet Ghost Rider, calling it the shockingly poorly written and the unsatisfied, ultimately failing to put together a true story that the diddle on the both being and the action and the comic book film. There were those who opposed its chasey approach to the budding superhero, criticized Paris Critics parasite the special effect largely done with the CGI and some seemed more understanding of what director Mark Stephen John was trying to deliver. Empire. For a movie made by a lifelong fan, it all seems a little impact at the first, but soon it became clear Johnson has Apologently set out to make a Lord living comic book set in a world where love are met by a big arc tree and the people say things like I am going to go where the road takes me with a starting phase. While the end produce may not be everyone taste, you can't say that he has not hit what 2007 film adaptation of The Ghost Rider was a fan over the top take on the books, and Nicole Cage delivered exactly that type of the performance. What is the chassis sometimes, but it was just what was required for him. What was required for him in the modern day more than a decade after Ghost Rider release in the theaters, more and more fans are reclaiming the movie. Time has given viewers a time has given viewers a generated approximately for the sheer ridiculously of the Nicole Cage performance and the totally over the top chasey dialogues deposit some obvious problem in the written and the packing of the movie. In the modern day, more than a decade after Ghost Rider release in the theaters, more and more fans are reclaiming the movie. Time has given viewers a generate affection for the shares, ridiculously of the Nicole Cage performance and the totally over the top cheesy dialogues deposit some obvious problem in the written and making of the movie. In the modern day, more than a decade after Ghost Rider release in the theaters, more and more fans are reclaiming the movie. Time has given viewers a generate a passion for the sheer ridiculously of Nicole Cage performance and the totally over the top chasey dialogues deposit some obvious problem in the written and the packing of the movie and a villain that arguable and one of the marvelous effect Ghost Rider achieve what he set out to do. If viewers are in the mood for some if viewers are modern in mood for the some shockless fun, it more than delivers spells it was successful enough to spur a sequel. Why Ghost Rider reviews are so bad, despite being an overall box office success, the 2007 Marvel movie Ghost Rider received negative review from the both cities and audience alike. Starting Nicole Cage as the titular Johnny Blaze, Ghost Rider was Sony Pictures' attempt to capitalize on their Spider-Man success with the another Marvel character in this cast, the Ghost Rider as a character who sold his soul to the devil in the comic. The story of the Ghost Rider follows famous stunt motorcycle rider Johnny Blaze, who as a child sold his soul to the masterpiece in the exchange for the curing his father cancer. When the demon collect on their begin, he makes Johnny the new Ghost Rider. Master's flaming domestic boundary hunter inhabits by the speech of the vacancy. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, while the comics are extremely dark, the movie adaptation of The Ghost Rider took a deadly more campy approach, which did not land well with the most review. The film certainly holds a 26% on the Rotten Tomatoes, but has a 10 over 5.2 on the IMDb, but has a 5.2 over 10 on the IMDb and a 90% approval rating on the Google review. So, why does the film have such a bad reputation? When the first Ghost Rider movie was released in 2007, fans were excited to see an on-screen adaptation of the speech of the vacancy in all his fairy glory, but taking a non-comic accurate approach surrounded fans as well as cities who were accustomed to stronger comic book movie like X-Men, Spider-Man, and the Batman beings. Ghost Rider 2007 comic book Cage arrives Meg review. Today on Cage Club, we become a special of the vacancy in Ghost Rider. Cage finally gets to play a comic book characters after the failed attempts to bring Superman to the big screen almost a decade earlier with Tim Burton. This is a very different characters and very different type of the superhero than Superman as well. If you were to ask which movie Tim Burton was more like to direct, This or Superman, I would have said this. I am not the biggest Ghost Rider fan coming into his movie, but I am familiar with the characters crossing up. I mostly just thought he looked awesome and was really tough, but was not really aware of his power set or origin. So this movie was gonna be informative as well as entertaining. Ghost Rider would pop up in the books that I read as a kid, usually as a guest star for 2 or 3 issues, and then he had be off on his own adventure. He has a tough characters for me to wrap my head around. While he gets his the power from the devil, he used them for the good. The Ghost Rider powers are treated more like a cure than a gift. While he did have survival ongoing series of his own, I never picked them up at the shop, but his own title power, his popularity, there would even be a semi-trip of the characters in the 90s name spin that would surpass the popularity of the Ghost Rider for a while, and even be a semi-trip of the characters in the 90s name span that would surpass the popularity of the Ghost Rider for a Marvel and claim the superhero from Hell title. Spawn even spanned his own film years before Ghost Rider got his the chance with the superhero movie Arms Race in its the infancy and the M in its the infancy, and Marvel still a few years away from the Iron Man and established the MCU. Nice Cage summoned to the Hellfire to stack demons running wild on the earth. Cage stars the Johnny Blaze, a stuntman not unlike the legendary Evil Knife. He toured around the country performing the most intense and the amazing set, defying motorcycle jumps in the extreme sport history. It's almost like Johnny has a death wish or think he is invisible, which is not that for some the truth. Turns out that when Johnny was a teen, he made a deal with the devil to save his father from cancer in exchange for his soul. The catch is that once the devil cruelly Johnny died from the cancer, he has a horrible stunt accident and dies anyway. Johnny was stupid on Johnny was stupid out of his soul and he's dead. Having his the devil beach, the devil tells him that one day he will call on the Johnny for a favor, and until that day he likely keep him alive and along. Young Johnny dumps his girlfriend and rides off into the nights to grow up to become Young Johnny dumps his girlfriend and rides off into the nights to grow up to become Nicolas Cage and popular member of the Nitrocrits. When the devil son comes to the earth looking for a contract of the soul, what would make him strong enough to take over hell? The devil calls upon Johnny Blaze to be his newest Ghost Rider. The devil bounty hunter imbued with the power of hellfire and a panic star that drives the victim in hands. Johnny walk away from all those accidents that he should have become the devil has been keeping his alive for just this type of the emergency. Johnny goes on the stunt for Blackheart, the devil's son, and his the gang of the demons before they can get their hands on the super soul contract. Johnny has trouble easing into the Ghost Rider role, but in trained by ex-rider Sam Elliott was the hangs out in the graveyard all the time. Old Ghost Rider tells Johnny where to find the contract because he did 100 years ago for the devil, so he could not get stronger. Johnny had to comfort Blackheart to defeat him and rescue his old girlfriend and save the world for the end of days. When Johnny defeats Blackheart, he can relinquish his power to the devil and regain his soul, but instead Johnny chosen to keep his power and use them again more evil. The devil allowed this and the dinners. This and the disappears while Johnny saves the day and rides off into the night as Ghost Rider. I would say that I mostly enjoyable this movie. I felt like it had some issue, mostly in the packing, but overall I liked it. I also watched the extended cut, which had some additional scenes and the extended sequence. I would like to see the theatrical cut again to see the theatrical cut again because most of my issue were with the packing and feel like a shortcut may be more conscience. I just feel like we spent too much time with the teenager Johnny in his versions and they wanted the movie to get to grow up Johnny played by Nick Cage sooner. I pretty much like it all when Nice Cage is on the screen. He is great in this too. He playing and having fun with the role and I think I can tell having a good time with his characters. When Johnny changed into the Ghost Rider, the effects are amazing. The skin burns off his face and his interior body gainful in flame before stealing on his bare skin like a flaming wig. All these special effects in the film are really great looking and add to the beautiful look of the movie. It's clear, cool and clean looking movie that is fun to just watch even if the story is not engaging you. I especially like the wild guest rider that Sir Elliott plays. I wish he had more to do as Ghost Rider, but I like him as the mentor teacher for the cage to get his bearing on his the new abilities. That will to do it for this entry into the Cage Club. Nice Cage will return as the Ghost Rider in Spiritual of the Vacancy, the second of the Cage sequel after National Treasure, Book of the Secret. I don't know that the Cage will ever get the chance to play Ghost Rider for a third times, but I have one idea on how that could be possible. Perhaps he can pass the torch to a new writer that would fit into the now well established Marvel Cinematic Universe. This week's superhero and action adventure movie review takes a look back at the 2007 Ghost Rider film, which was the first of two Ghost Rider movies starring Nicolas Cage, which are not part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe continue. There is nothing in either of these movies to contract anything that has happened in the MCU, so technical, I guess. They could be part of your personal canon if you want. I originally saw Ghost Rider at a theater and remember so what, like the movie, but 11 years later it does not hold up very well. The CGI is the clearly obvious and at times even looks animated, but worse than that, the dialogues given to Nicolas Cage is the horrendous bad and the Cage somehow managed to deliver it even worse. The villain of the movie is not particularly awe-inspiring either, so in the end this movie turns into somewhat of the forgettable piece of work. The Ghost Rider character is the visual stunning since his the certain in the 1970s. He has been a remarkable since his creations in the 1970s. He has been a remarkable recognized character, but it must be extremely difficult to recreate that on the film. But it must be extremely difficult to recreate that on film. On paper, the plot sounds far more complicated than what it is. The devil in this movie called Masterpiece, which is not really correct but just roll with it, sent his bounty hunter, the Ghost Rider, to retire a document known as the Contract of Sar Vacancy, a list of 1,000 corrupt souls. However, seeing that the contract would give the Masterpiece ultimately power on Earth, Ghost Rider refused to give him the contract and the rights away. This scene is set to in the America southwest of the 18th. In 1986, Masterpiece contracts 70 years old stunt motorcycle rider Johnny Blaze, offering to cure his the father cancer in exchange for the Blaze soul. Of course, if you know anything about popular cultures, then you also know that is not going to work out for the Johnny Blaze, and it does not. The elder Blaze does not die of the cancer, but is killed in a motorcycle stunt instead. Over 20 years later, Johnny Blaze has become the world's most famous stunt rider. Blaze met his the lifelong sweetheart Roxanne Simpson, now a new reporter, whom he abandoned after his father's death just before his the great jumps. They awkwardly hit it off, and the chemistry between Nicolas Cage and Eva Mendes, who plays Roxanne, is known extends. Blackheart is the domestic son of the Mephistopheles and a very heartwarming antagonist, he comes to Earth along with three fallen angels to find the lost contract of San Vigency. Its responsible masterpiece makes Johnny Blaze the new Ghost Rider and offer to return his soul if he defeats Blackheart. Ghost Rider powers are really all over the place in this movie. He apparently has signification super strength. He may have some healing ability, but they are. He may have some healing abilities, but they are. He apparently has signification super strength. He may have some handling abilities, but they are inconstant at best. But the Panic Star, a power that allows the Ghost Rider to make any evil person experience all the pains they caused on their victims in his most powerful weapons. Johnny Blaze meets a man called the Caretaker Sam Elliott, who know all about the history of the Ghost Rider. He tells him everything that happens was not a dream and that it will happen again, especially at the night when he is near and the evil soul. Obviously, the character's turns are to be the Circle 80s Ghost Rider. Ultimately, of course, the Ghost Riders team up sort of to take down Blackheart. At no time did I ever feel Blackheart was that big of a theaters. Mr. Fields offered to take the Ghost Rider Curious away from the Johnny Blaze, but Blaze decided to keep the power and remind the Ghost Rider inside. All of his was delivered with the roast, most over the top melodramatic dialogues you have ever heard in a movie. The Ghost Rider design is stunning. Make no mistake, Ghost Rider just looks amazing even with the overall out CGI in this movie. The Ghost Rider still looks pretty cool, and the now where is that the demonstrate better than the epic Riders and vacancies where we get to see the same Elliott Ghost Rider and domestic heroes alongside Ghost Rider and his demon bike. I had been fine with an 80s Ghost Rider movie myself. The movie had potential, the characters look great, the story of the Ghost Rider is interesting, but it just does not hold up with all of the trebly corny dialogues and the clunky acting by Cage. At times it was downright unforgettable. At times it seems like they were purposely trying to make a bad movie. It's too bad. This movie did have some fun moments. Ghost Rider history in the Marvel comic has been very sporty as well. He was a big hit in the 1917, combined two things that were riding a pop culture's wave, Evil, Neville and the Orc. He even returned in the 1990s with a popular series. However, over the years, there have been some very bad Ghost Rider comic as well. If anything, the brilliantly decides and protective Ghost Rider has been much like this movie, inconstant. Inclusion, this movie has its moments, but the dialogues is among the roast you will ever hear in a major motion pictures. If you don't want to use button but still want to spot when it was cool, then how about a one-time $5 PayPal donations? Thank you.